Sunshine Coast, September 2005, a car accident, and my life changed. Today I'm going to talk about my breast cancer right from the beginning to now. My breast cancer came back. I'm still here. So for all of you who are battling breast cancer or any other kind of chronic illness, there may be some pointers in here that'll help you. Hi, I'm Denise, and this is Travels in My Chair. Welcome today. In 2005, I was driving home from work. A little dog ran out onto the highway. The vehicle in front of me stopped, slowed my vehicle down. All of a sudden, smack! I was rear-ended. The police came, the ambulance came, my husband came. I didn't do any damage. They were concerned about soft tissue damage, whiplash, so forth. I seemed okay, except when I was thrown back with the force of the impact of the accident, because the vehicle behind me had been going somewhere between 60 and 80 kilometers an hour. I was very tender in my chest area. In fact, I got bruises. That seemed to be the only problem. And after a couple of days, I was sort of, checking my chest. On my left breast, I felt a little tiny lump. And I went, wow, okay, that must have been from the accident. I didn't ignore it, but I didn't sort of think about it too much. After about a week, the bruising on my chest started to go away, and I went and did another breast examination, and there was no lump. So I went, oh yeah, I guess that must have been from the accident. For the year 2006, we had planned for probably well over a year to do a trip to Europe. We were going to go to Paris and Provence, Italy. There was a lot of planning involved, as you can imagine, because I'm in a wheelchair. So it's not just a matter of phoning up a hotel or a B&B and say, book me in. The plan had been for September of 2006 to make this big trip. We were pretty excited about it. Couldn't really afford it, but we felt that with my MS, before it got any worse and before I could absolutely not walk at all, we should at least attempt to make as many long distance trips. Just before we left, the lump came back, and I hadn't said anything to anybody. My husband Alan was really, really upset when I told him, as you can imagine he should be. I did a kind of a stupid thing, and I'll admit that now. I looked at my life and I thought to myself, I want to take that trip. Been in the works for over a year, almost a year and a half, to try and get everything all organized. I want to see my cousins in England. I want to take that trip. So we did. And when we got back, I went to see the doctor. She said, I'm pretty sure it's breast cancer. You've got some orange peeling around the nipple, and I think we should get a biopsy done. And of course, when the biopsy came back, it showed that indeed I had breast cancer in situ, so it was confined to the breast. And they designated it 3B. It was hormone receptor positive. I was postmenopausal. At that very moment in time, there just happened to be a study going on. In that study, that clinical study, they were studying a drug called letrozole. Letrozole was designed for hormone receptor positive cancer in postmenopausal women. It was still in trials, but it was showing such positive results that my oncologist happened to be one of the people that was in charge of that study. And she said to me, Denise, I think I want you on that pill. And that pill shrunk the tumor so quickly. It went from, it just kept shrinking in a matter of weeks. It was astounding, actually. So we were pretty happy. Well, as happy as you can get when you've got a diagnosis of breast cancer. My blood pressure went way off the charts. Remember, I've got MS, and I'm trying to work a full-time job selling cars, and I'm under a heck of a lot of stress. After my oncologist saw what was going on with the letrozole, she then said, okay, now we've got to go forward and we have to just figure out what we're going to do. And so I want you to have x-ray on your lungs, We'll do ultrasound, kidneys, liver, we'll do a bone scan. We're going to do it all and make sure that this is confined. And if that's the case, then we'll decide. I think the lump is too big to just do a lumpectomy, and it looks like there's more than one. Probably have to do a mastectomy, but let's just see how all the tests come out first. And I said, well, would there be chemotherapy or radiation therapy? And she said, maybe not. I mean, if it's confined to the breast, it's just a matter of taking off the breast, checking for lymph nodes, and then dealing with it from there. They sent me for all these tests, and voila, when they did the bone test, the bone scan showed a hole in my sternum, and everything came to a grinding halt. Now, this is a very painful part for me to talk about because I was left wallowing in thin air without anybody to help me but my husband. And he had no idea about breast cancer either. So we were in the dark about it. And we were not able to get answers, and nobody seemed to be able to do anything. When they discovered the hole in my sternum, they decided the cancer had gone into my bone, that I had a couple of years left to live, and that was it. So nobody could agree with what to do with me. One oncologist wanted to do chemotherapy and not do a mastectomy. Another oncologist wanted to do a mastectomy. The radiation oncologist did not want to do radiation. Me, I was the one going like this, spinning, 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 having not a clue what they were going to do. One night I was at home and my girlfriend called, and I told her what was going on, and I told her how upset I was. And while we were talking, her husband was kind of nattering away in the background, and her husband had just gone through neck surgery, and he had cancer in his neck, and he had got the recommendation of a surgeon from his brother who was a doctor, and she came highly recommended. And excuse me, Denise, I need to talk to him for a minute. What? She says. And he tells her that the doctor that had done the surgery on his neck, that performed a miracle, I may add, had switched her specialty just recently to breast cancer. And I got her name, and the next week when I went to see my oncologist, I said, so you're feeling that I should have a radical mastectomy? And she said, yes. And I said, may I pick my surgeon? And she kind of looked at me and said, well, that's highly irregular, but, well, within reason, I guess. So I gave her the name of the surgeon. She goes, whoa, that's who I would have picked for you anyway. Meanwhile, time was ticking on. Oncologist said, you know, your cancer's actually slow growing, and it's probably been hanging around in there for quite a while. We've planned a trip to England in spring of 2007 because I want to say goodbye to my last remaining uncle and my cousins. She said, okay, I think, you know what, I think you're responding so well to the letrozole. I think you can do that. I gotta tell you guys right now, I am getting a pain down my left leg that is just excruciating. Holy, whoa. Maybe it doesn't want me to talk about this. Sorry about that. That was really painful. Anyway, my oncologist said, I think that you can have the surgery if we'll book it. You'll be back the end of June. I said, yeah. She says, we'll book it for July 7th. I went, okay. And I had a meeting with my surgeon. Meanwhile, I was still spinning because, you know, nobody seemed to be making any decisions about whether I should have chemo, whether I should have radiation before or after surgery, whether I should have both breasts removed, one breast removed, what was supposed to happen to me. I just seemed like I wasn't getting the answers. The day I met with my surgeon, I think all that came out of me. The surgeon has a nurse that is with her all the time, and as we were getting ready to leave the appointment, she handed me a card with her name and telephone number and email address on it, and she said to me, you've got questions and you've got concerns, email me, I'll find out the answers and I'll give you a call. That took the weight off my shoulders. And she did exactly that. She checked with the radiation oncologist. She checked with the previous oncologist, see why they would or would not give me chemotherapy. One of the reasons was that this hole in the sternum was causing a bit of concern, because that meant that, all intents and purposes, that cancer was spreading throughout my bones. So finally, there was a discussion with my surgeon, because then they didn't even want to do the surgery. They decided, why bother? We'll give her chemotherapy to make her feel comfortable. And my surgeon went, whoa, no, we're going to do the left breast mastectomy. We will check out the lymph nodes. And then afterwards, I want her to have harsh radiation on her sternum. And I want her to have harsh radiation within the chest wall. And the radiation oncologist said, no way, I won't do that. And my surgeon said, oh yeah, she had more seniority, I guess, and she trumped it. I'm telling you this because when you're in a situation and you are in a life or death situation, or you have a chronic illness, it's so easy to allow people to lead you by a leash and make decisions for you. You can get lost in the shuffle so easily. I could have, without my friend's husband of having that surgery, which was just a fluke, I would have been lost in the shuffle and I wouldn't be here today. Here I am. We talked about having breast implant, and my surgeon, she said, let's talk about this after the surgery, because that's a pretty invasive surgery and it's a pretty long road to go to get the skin stretched far enough to accept the prosthetic breast. It may be something, because you're not a large-breasted woman, it may be something that you may want to forego and just wear, prosthetic breast within your bra or something. And I frankly, and I've never sort of told you all my history, my breast history when I was a teenager, and one day I will, but I frankly couldn't have cared less, to be honest, about my breast. It was like all my breasts have done my whole life has been nothing but a heartache for me, because they were so small. And now all of a sudden one's going to get lopped off, and I should be more upset, but I'm not. Frankly, getting the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis in '95 was more of a kick in the gut than getting the diagnosis of breast cancer. But I have to admit that we were realistic about the fact that I probably was going to be dying in a couple of years, and that's why we pushed for that trip in 2007. And then again, we took a cruise in 2008. We did a house exchange in 2009. I mean, we were going to cram as much life into our life as we could and spend time with our grandchildren and our family, because we had no idea what was going to go on. Surgery went pretty well. They keep you in the hospital for a whole day, put drains in you, and then say, get out. So I got out, and the nurse would come, check the drains. My drains were only supposed to be in a week or two, but I ended up having them in for 6 weeks. When I went to see the surgeon, this gross caked up all around these drain connections, and the surgeon's like, whoa. It's just with you walking the way you do with your walker, those would have never drained. That should have come out weeks ago, and she just yanked them out. The deal was that I would have radiation. The surgery had been in July, and in October I would have 16 rounds of radiation. And I still wanted to work during that time, even though I was on a shortened work week. And so I asked friends and family, because once you've been lined up with your dots for the radiation, the actual zapping takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you have to go every day. And I didn't want to stay in Vancouver, people to take me. And I had volunteers, I had friends and family and my husband, and if I was having a good day, we'd have a wonderful day, go out for lunch, go down Granville Street, go in different shops. If I was having a really bad day and I was feeling like I was getting the flu, because that happened about halfway through the radiation treatment, my friends would bring me home. And if I'm being honest, those 16 days of radiation was the the most fun I'd had for a long time. Because radiation doesn't hurt. Every time I'd go to see my oncologist, her questions were always the same. How are you? Any swelling? She'd check around my neck, under my arms, lymph nodes swelling, and always seemed a little bit perplexed that I was okay. At some point, 5 years after the surgery, she said, well, I don't know what to do about this letrozole because they are having really good results with that drug for secondary breast cancer. I don't know, what do you think? I said, keep me on it. And she said, okay. And so we stayed on letrozole. I was on letrozole for 11 years. And then she took me off letrozole and said the next time I went to visit her in 2017, she said, I think we're going to graduate you. I said, what? And she said, well, we've just looked over all your records and all your x-rays and all your scans, your bone scans and everything. That hole and your sternum, we're beginning to wonder if it wasn't a hole at all, if it was a shadow from a lymph node. We don't know for sure, but it hasn't spread and it hasn't changed. My oncologist told me that even though that with all the blood work I was getting done, I wasn't showing, my markers weren't increasing. She said, you need to know, Denise, that there is cancer still within your body. It's not totally gone. And it may one day come back. Maybe it won't. I mean, you've been really lucky. From the time of the surgery in 2007, you haven't shown any symptoms at all. And here we are, 10 years later. So we're retiring you. And I felt like I was being kicked to the curb. And I told her that. And she said, no. And I said, well, I guess when you have cancer, you're treated, and then when you're let go, you kind of are wallowing. Of course, during this time, I got type 2 diabetes. My MS had got to the point where I was pretty much always in the wheelchair, and we were confining our trips to the little motorhome that we'd bought, hence travels in my chair. But who knew we were going to get COVID? That was sort of where we were at. I was living my life. I have 10 grandchildren. I reconnected with a daughter that I had given up for adoption. When I was young, I wouldn't say a great life because there's always that shadow, MS, type 2 diabetes, and will the cancer ever come back? I don't know. But I felt pretty good, I have to say. And we took trips around BC and Alberta with the motorhome. We had done trips to Disneyland and Las Vegas, and we did all that. But I kind of instinctively knew there was probably going to be no more trips to Europe for me, that it was getting too hard on me, too long. Then COVID came. And so I wasn't getting out, and I wasn't being socially active. As you guys can all relate, started doing an exercise program. And I did a couple of videos on it. It was stretching and a little bit of, a combination of a little bit of Qigong and yoga and just a little bit of cardio because my doctor wanted me to keep my cardio up. And one day, early in last year, I had a yoga strap and I put it on my feet and I was lifting up my right leg, and all of a sudden I heard it wasn't like a popping sound, but it was a noise within my body that wasn't like a normal noise. And I went, what the hell's that? And then I had pain. My right leg is my weight-bearing leg. It didn't want to weight bear. I put extra strain on my left leg, and my left leg was really giving me a lot of problems. But then it got better. And then another little while went along, and I was back to doing my exercises, trying to do something every day, The same thing happened again, except I didn't hear a noise. It's just that I couldn't put any weight on my right leg. Pain was pretty harsh to the point where as soon as I tried to put weight on it, it would just buckle up on me. And I thought, you know what, Denise, you can bury your head in the sand all you want, but really, there's something going on. And I've told you this before in another video, but I phoned my doctor. I asked to have a CT scan, and I asked to have complete blood work. In July, that all happened. Once they got the blood work, showed something that was amiss, I was scheduled for the CT scan over the July long weekend, and bingo, I was in, and bingo, they had the result. When it came back, it was the right sacrum, so down by the tailbone over, there was a tumor and a soft tissue tumor. The doctor said, we're getting you into the cancer agency right away. Scary. Yeah, scary. Because I knew that this wasn't in my breast, because I didn't have one, and there was no lumps in my other breast, so I knew that it was something else. And so that means that the cancer was bad. And I knew that. But meanwhile, I'd planned this big family reunion in August. On the 27th of July of last year, we had our first appointment. Now, I have to tell you, it was a totally different experience than I had had in 2006. Totally different. First of all, my oncologist is a geriatric oncologist. Although in my heart, I'm not old, I guess at 71, physically I am. They had a lot of questions to ask me, and they asked me all the questions before I even had my first appointment. I got a phone call from a lovely lady named Anna. She asked me questions like, do you understand what's going on with your body and the type of cancer? Have you made plans for your final wishes? Because we insist that you do have those plans in place in case you can't speak for yourself. Talk about hitting you in the face. I was like, okay. And I start, me and Dr. Google go, oh, when you have cancer that goes to your bone, that's usually about a couple of years to live. Okay, then I guess I better do something. Now, one of the things I have to tell you is when I was first diagnosed with cancer in 2006, I had made a pretty extensive bucket list of things that I wanted to have happen in my life. And at that time in 2006 was take another trip to Europe. And of course we did. I wanted to take the kids to Disneyland. We did. I wanted to get out of debt. We sold everything. We got out of debt. And we are now happy renters. And just the list went on, of the things that I needed to have happen to make my life easier and to make it easier for my husband. So now fast forward to 2021, in the middle of a pandemic, I'm trying to redo a will that is ancient, and now because I have my daughter Heather and we have grandchildren, it's totally a different experience than back in 2006. If you've got a question for your doctor, you got a concern, you make sure that you tell them. And I'm sorry if I get kind of preachy here, but it's really, really important because we're talking about you, your health, really. In my video, Making Memories, Family Memories, you'll see what a wonderful time we had. I was really tired, but in August last year, we went to the interior BC, just at the tail end of the wildfires, and we rented 2 chalets and had a marvelous time with our family and the grandkids. Even though I couldn't do much, I had just come back in July 27th when I had my big appointment with my radiation oncologist, who I just loved, and my oncologist. They had scheduled me right then and there for one heavy dose of radiation. No fooling around, marked me, dosed me, gave me some pills, sent me home. And I slept for, 2 weeks. Then when I healed from that, they put me on, I had gone off letrozole, by the way, after I'd been on it 11 years. The oncologist then said, I think it's time to get you off letrozole. But this time, my oncologist says, yes, I think you tolerated letrozole really well. I think we're going to put you back on it. And I went, whoa. And she said, but now we have another drug called Ibrance, which is a oral chemotherapy drug. We have discovered through testing that works really well, coupled with the letrozole. Well, the Ibrance makes me sleep. I go to bed at 11, and I get up anywhere from 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm on hydromorphone at night for the pain, which is, on the most part, I have to say it's bearable. The cancer that was in my right, the sacrum and my right side is now also spread to the lower tailbone and onto my left side, which is a weird thing because that's where all the pain's always been from my MS. So I never know what it is that's hurting. Is it the cancer? Is it the MS? What's going on? And I had to have another CT scan, and that's when that all showed up. But my doctor said, I don't know, Denise, your markers are okay. Your white blood cell count's been okay. I think we're just going to give you bone infusions every month. I'm not even sure whether this is on your left side is tumors or sclerosis, which is just would be the hardening of the bone. Not a walk in the park. I go the end of this month for another CT scan, and that's going to tell us what's going on. I have my suspicion because of that pain that I just had. You guys are witness. I have not had pain like that before, and it went right down my thigh, and it was not going away. That kind of gives me a little bit of an inkling that maybe the tumors are spreading. I don't know. But basically, all in all, my oncologist has cut down on my Ibrance, the chemo pill, to the lowest I can have. I'm not going to say I've had more energy, but I'm not sleeping as much during the day. Maybe I'll have a little nap, and sometimes I won't have any. That's working. I keep a really strict record of my body, which I'll share with you. In my day planner, I mark down my blood pressure, which I take once a week. I mark down my blood sugar every time I have a bowel movement, because all the meds I'm on really play with your bowels. And guys, you don't need any infections going on down there with everything else you got going on for you. So you want to make sure that those bowels are working properly. I know it's not a very pleasant thing to talk about, but you know, we're here talking about cancer, so you might as well get it all. My granddaughter, when she was about 15 months old, came over and she lifted up my shirt, and I didn't have my bra on because it was like a hot summer day or something. And she looked at my right breast and she goes, "Booby," and gave it a kiss. And then she looked at my left, no breast, and she frowns and she goes, "Owie, Grandma, owie," give it a kiss, and goes and takes off and plays. So that's breast cancer in a nutshell, isn't it? Owie. I know enough to ask the questions that I have to ask. I'm no longer burying my head in the sand and just blindly following my doctor's orders, nor do I want to aggravate them either. I told my oncologist and my radiation oncologist this time when I went last year, I said, I want us to be a team. I want us to be working together and to be able to talk openly about everything. And they all agreed, absolutely yes, that's what we would do. We're a team because this is my body, and I'm also working with my family, and that's going to affect them too. So we want everything to be in order. Thank you so much for joining me today. The people that watch my videos are just absolutely marvelous people. They're all going through stuff. You know, we've all got our problems. They may not all have cancer. My viewers, my subscribers. How much I think about you and how much I care about you. And how I want your journey, however it may be, and with whatever's going on in your life, to be as pain-free and comfortable as possible. It's a complicated time. You are amazing people. Every one of you. You're dealing with it, you know? Anyway, I just wanted to share my cancer story with you. And of course, I'm still here. So we'll see what happens with our CT scan the end of May. Cross fingers. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And we'll just go from there. Bye for now.